Yeah, good morning, and hey now, PASW staff, clients, and friends joining us. Welcome to Tuesday's class. We had a lot of fun yesterday looking at Saturday Night Fever and your assignment for Friday. So send that in to me by tomorrow, and we'll see the results on Friday. Today we're going to do nothing like that. We are going to look at a composer, somebody that I've been really wanting to talk about for a long time. We haven't got to it yet, but today we're going to spend some time. It's going to be monumental, and we're going to get through this together because he's like Shakespeare. I mean, the amount of work and genius that he's given to this world is unbelievable, and his music is some of the most beautiful, gorgeous, intense, though, music ever written. And today we'll be talking about Richard Wagner. So it's Wagner with a V, even though there's a W. So you want to sound smart in conversation. So it's Wagner because he's German. So just FYI, just so we can look cool at parties and make sure we know that we're on the same page here. So yeah, as German as you can get, pretty much. So we're going to talk about his life, his music. We're going to look at some of the stuff. We're going to talk about what kind of a person he was and his the influence on music, but on life, on civilization. I mean, just an amazing thinker, and wanted to change the world, and did. He had a huge ego, and but he had the music to back it up, and that's always good. If you're going to be real cocky and confident, make sure you have the talent to back it up. So so let's get into Wagner. So born in 1813, okay? So a long time ago, dies in 1883 at 69 from a heart attack. So let's go over there. Let's go to Germany. Why not, right? Okay, so we were in Brooklyn yesterday. Let's fly over to Leipzig, and this is where he's born. He's born in this house, and he's really important because it sounds like, his music's really intense, and it is, but it's very romantic music. So we looked at Mozart and we looked at Beethoven. So here's a little timeline of just so we can get a timeline of when am I talking about this. We did a class on Mozart, Beethoven. Wagner fits in there, okay? Debussy is a little bit after, and we did Debussy 2 weeks ago. So this is, Debussy is kind of the impressionist music, right? Wagner is right in the middle of the 19th century when he's doing most of his big operas and most of his work. So that's just a timeline of this is when he's working. And like I said, his music is intensely romantic and full of emotions, and he was really good at creating his intense emotions, making the listener feel his emotions, making them feel their own emotions, digging very deep down. And we'll listen to some examples of extreme intensity where it's almost kind of overwhelming, much like Proust, where they really zone in on an idea, on a feeling, rather, and they just keep pushing that feeling where you almost are just bursting with emotion, whether it's beautiful or strange or just feeling, I mean, we've talked about composers that have said, if I can make you feel something, then I'm doing, a good job. So it's all about that. Okay, so he really wasn't a child prodigy, unlike other composers we've talked about. His stepfather, his dad died right after he was born, and his stepfather was involved in the theater. So he was really interested in the theater and in drama before music. I mean, he was a playwright first and wanted to be a playwright, wanted to write poems. But then seeing his dad in the theater kind of wanted him to create music and drama, and that's what he's most important for. He's most famous for transforming operas in a sense that we looked at Rossini, and Rossini wrote that whimsical, funny, charming works, and that sounds nothing like Wagner. And this is Rossini's going on at about the same time. Wagner is writing his own libretti, so all the text, all the words to all these operas, he's really in complete control of the story, its original text, its original orchestrations. He's conducting his own stuff. Before Wagner, the music was kind of easy enough where you could almost have some of the players conduct themselves by making, gestures or by signaling, because the music was pretty much in the same time signature, same rhythm. You'd have a conductor, but by the time Wagner's music, and it gets so much more sophisticated with different rhythms, different tempos, that he kind of had to take control of the orchestra as well. He was very controlling, but in a good way. I mean, so much so that he built his own opera house just for his operas, completely for that, in Bayreuth. This cool little place, and it was kind of revolutionary because he kind of made the first pit orchestra, because he hid the orchestra down there so he could focus, so the audience could focus on the drama and the actors and the performers. So by 1850, really the middle of the 19th century, his operas, his music, his style is creating this kind of auteur theory where he's in control of everything. We talked about auteurs, writer, directors, filmmakers that are in charge of, or not in charge, but it's their entire creation. When you see a movie, it's by this person. We talked a little bit about that. Well, Wagner's the first kind of to do that, where he had everything, he was involved with every aspect of the opera, of directing it, costumes, conducting it, text. It was completely all in his imagination. Just a brilliant thinker. So he was way ahead of his time because he wanted complete control of how his productions were to be. And another thing that's kind of like film composers in a way is that he was very the leitmotifs, okay? So those are kind of reoccurring musical phrases. Composers use leitmotifs all the time, especially in film. If we think of maybe the most famous leitmotif in film, where a musical phrase repeats, what do you think of? Jaws, right? Where you hear that theme every time the shark comes. That's a leitmotif. So Wagner's doing that extensively in his operas with characters. So he's doing it on stage instead of in film. And the Ring Cycles is maybe his biggest work. I mean, it took 26 years to complete. It's 4 operas, and it's about 15 hours of music. You can go and see it, it's tough. I mean, his music, it can be very romantic and fun to listen to, but it's so long. I mean, it really takes you got to be a good listener. The music is just beautiful beyond words. But so the Ring Cycle, it's such an undertaking. So Tristan and Isolde, that's probably one of his most famous. That's not part of the Ring Cycle, but this comes out published in 1865. Let's just think about that year. So if we think about, this is in Germany, right? So if we think about America, the Civil War ends that year. Lincoln's assassinated 6 days after the Civil War ends. Wagner's writing this kind of music. In America, you have Stephen Foster writing songs. You have him writing Camptown Races. That comes out in 1850. Very different music than Wagner. It's just kind of for us to take a look around the world of, what's happening. With Tristan, he comes out with the Tristan chord. People have mentioned this chord. It's like this. It sounds dissonant, right? Now, for 19th century, music is pretty tonal. There's a tonal center where you can where you know the key. Okay, this is in the key of F, this is in the key of C. And we've talked about composers that have deviated from that, and particularly Debussy, where that one note from Prelude of the Afternoon of a Faun, where he changed that, where it's a tritone, where that became the first modern piece of classical music. Well, Wagner is doing that a little bit earlier. You can hear in the music, it's so emotional. It's drenching with these emotional orchestrations, these textures. He's changing keys all of the time. He's doing things that composers at that time weren't really doing. We will do in the 20th century, but this is all, 50 years before that or so. And he's drenching the orchestra with his just sweeping emotion. I mean, it's so beautiful. He was a very charming, hilarious, witty guy, even though his work wasn't really like that. He would bathe in vast quantities of milk and Irish perfume for several hours while writing his operas. He would dress like a little prince, heavy perfume, silk underwear, ruffled shirts, women's jackets. I mean, he was kind of this eccentric person and ladies' man, to say the least. And he thought he was kind of God in a way. And in a way, in Germany, he kind of was considered that. I mean, I think he did do a lot of writings on anti-Semitism, and he did have a lot of friends that were Jewish, though. And I think because he was Hitler's favorite composer, I think people thought that Wagner was a Nazi, but he wasn't. Wagner said, "I write music with an exclamation point," and I thought that'd be kind of a funny way to end our little lesson on Wagner. Writing with an exclamation point. I mean, from all these examples, we can hear that he really is making his mark on, yes, this is the idea that I want, and I'm going to drill this idea. I'm going to almost force it in a way where you feel so overwhelmed with these emotions going on that that it's unbelievable. I mean, I saw Tristan at the Met in New York, and I couldn't finish it. It was too much for me. There were 2 intermissions, and after the first one, I should give myself another chance to see it. But sometimes it can just be too draining, emotionally draining. You got to be in the right mood for it. But I wonder if we could live our lives always with an exclamation point. Not to be shouters or rioters or people that create trouble, but people that stand up for ourselves, people that standing up for what you believe in, standing up for artists, with your work, being an exclamation point, as opposed to maybe like a ... although that's good too. But take a stance with things, let's see if we can live our lives with an exclamation point, at least today. Be assertive, know what you believe in, know what you want, and try to do that. So if Wagner wrote with an exclamation point, let's try to think and do with an exclamation point. There's something beautiful about the uncertainty of things, which I always tend to love. But then sometimes we need some certainty, an exclamation point in our lives. So I'm going to try it today. So let's see what you think. But this was good. Wagner, just an amazing, enormous genius. Wrote, and like I said, maybe he was crazy and egomaniac, but he had the music and the talent to back it up. And gosh, I mean, we still talk about his music so much later, and it's still being performed all the time. So that's Richard Wagner. All right. I've said it all. Yeah, I'm sweating a little bit, but come on. We don't have to talk about it. Let's not dwell on it, okay? All right, miss you. Love you. see you soon.